All right. Thanks, everyone. My name's John Dunn from Indiana University, here with my colleagues Carolyn Kaisi and Ryan Steens from Northwestern University, and we are going to give a brief update on the state of Avalon. I'm not going to talk in a lot of detail here about what Avalon is. You either know it or you can easily find out more, but in brief summary, it's a solution bundle for audio and video media access that it's been developed primarily by Indiana University and Northwestern University over the past 6-7 years or so. I say primarily. There have been some other significant contributions, and we'll kind of talk more about the community involvement in later parts of this presentation. We have been lucky enough to be supported by a series of grants from the Mellon Foundation and IMLS, in addition to substantial institutional investment from Indiana, Northwestern, and others. And the current production release version of Avalon is 6.4.4, which came out very recently. But as Carolyn will talk about, there is a great deal of ongoing development toward a reinvention of Avalon known as Avalon 7. We have a fairly good number of implementers or folks in process of implementing Avalon at this point, and Ryan tells me that everyone on this slide is okay with having their name show up, so hopefully that's the case. But one thing you'll notice is there are a fair number of institutions listed here that are not kind of traditional members or not really active members of the Samvera community, but have adopted Avalon. One of our big goals with Avalon has been to help kind of expand the reach of Samvera technologies beyond the traditional community, and to make it be something that institutions can install and get running without a lot of local kind of expert Samvera or even Ruby on Rails perhaps development expertise, and I think we've been fairly successful with that. Mike stole a lot of the thunder from actually, yeah, I didn't even notice the thunder image here. Thunder from a few of these things, but I think it is important to know that Avalon does not require Flash anymore. So yes. Some of the other features that came out earlier this year, we improved our functionality around creating and sharing playlists. We rewrote our batch ingest system to make it more reliable, and a number of other bug fixes and minor changes. And then Avalon 6.4 and some minor point releases since then have added adaptive bitrate streaming using HLS, HTTP live streaming across all browsers, so you can set the quality setting to auto and get the best quality that you need. Also added a feature called Intercom, which lets one push objects easily between multiple Avalon instances, and that's useful in certain types of workflows, including some of the preservation workflows we have in place at Indiana. So that's kind of where Avalon is. I wanted to talk a bit about some other collaborations we've been involved in and functionality that's available around Avalon 6 now. One of them we announced a few months back is that the OHMS, Oral History Metadata Synchronizer tool that's in pretty common use within the oral history community, now works with Avalon content. So one can use OHMS to index oral history interviews, synchronize transcripts to interviews with content in Avalon. And this is something that Indiana University funded through AVP, which is now the developer of the OHMS tool, as part of a big oral history project we're doing to celebrate our bicentennial. So both the kind of staff-facing tool and then the public-facing viewer can now work with Avalon content. A related project I wanted to mention is something called Aviary, which also has Avalon support. This is a new software as a service-based oral history indexing and discovery delivery tool that AVP is developing, which is kind of OHMS plus in a way. It can import OHMS content and provide discovery and search across oral histories within a collection rather than just within a single interview, and also supports some of the indexing capabilities that OHMS does as well. And you can find out more about what we're doing with oral histories on Wednesday afternoon. Another collaboration you can hear more about on Wednesday is that we have been working, the Avalon team and Indiana have been working with WGBH and consultant AVP on use of Avalon or Avalon components as part of a new version of the archival management system for the American Archive of Public Broadcasting project that WGBH is responsible for in conjunction with the Library of Congress. So they are taking Hyrax and building it to support a use case for essentially allowing contributors to this National Archive of Public Broadcasting content to be able to find, access, manage, improve metadata for their content. And the original idea was to base this on Avalon, but because Avalon is now moving to Hyrax, as Carolyn will talk about more, we're kind of working in parallel with each other and sharing where we can. And we're working right now together on some batch ingest functionality that will work for both of our use cases. So again, you can find out more on Wednesday about that effort. And then really a big part of the work on Avalon 7, and Carolyn will talk a bit more specifically about what we're doing in Avalon 7. But a big part of the current grant we have from IMLS to do Avalon work is supporting helping to support the evolution of the IIIF, the International Image Interoperability Framework, specifications to encompass audio and video. So we've had a number of Avalon team members very involved in the technical specification group for IIIF AV, which has been working on informing development of the Presentation 3.0 API spec for IIIF. We've implemented that in Avalon 7, both in terms of generating IIIF manifests and consuming IIIF manifests. Some of you who were in the workshop yesterday learned a bit more about that, and there'll also be a session tomorrow. Yes, no. That should, okay, everything that says Wednesday should say Thursday here. Thursday at 10:30. Can find out more detail about that. Another thing we're doing, though, is that we are working with Digerati, company in the UK that's done a lot of work in the IIIF sphere to develop a web-based audio annotation tool that's especially oriented around diagramming and conveying information about musical form against an audio recording of musical performance. And you can see a screenshot there of this tool that's being developed, but it's a pretty powerful tool for visualizing musical form and other types of structure of time-based content that has a variety of potential applications. And it will work with Avalon as a IIIF provider or with other IIIF sources. So that's it for my part, and I'm going to turn things over to Carolyn to talk about integrating into the community.
Thanks, John. So now that we heard from John about the Avalon 6 work and some of the communities we've been involved with for both 6 and 7, I'm going to speak about Avalon as part of the Samvera community. One of the large goals for the IMLS grant that we currently have is to adapt Avalon to make use of the current version of the Samvera stack and to modularize, I can never say that, Avalon's code by engaging members of the Samvera community beyond NU and IU. To identify areas of functionality that's useful in other Samvera-based applications. This goal, as John already talked about, or you could see some of this in the WGBH work, is what's driving our vision for Avalon 7. So what is our vision for Avalon 7? Since 2013, when we released version 1 of Avalon, we've been maintaining a lot of code that isn't core to our main use case of providing a rich audiovisual experience. So we decided almost 2 years ago to move Avalon to Hyrax, as it would allow us to focus more on our core use cases, since we would be able to communally maintain more of the stack. Additionally, it is giving the Avalon team an opportunity to roll upstream core work that is not AV specific, for example, batch ingest. The vision for Avalon 7 is that it is a solution bundle with full feature parity to Avalon 6 that is built on top of Hyrax. As part of this journey, it is also a set of core gems that can be used within a Hyrax-based repository. So that means if you're an institution who wants a repository with video and audio streamings, you will have the flexibility to maintain a single code stack instead of both an Avalon instance and a Hyrax-based repository. So I'm going to update everyone about where we are currently in developing 7, but before I do, I just want to mention that in the spirit of integrating Avalon more in the Samvera community, we try very hard to keep our roadmap up to date on our website. We're also keeping on top of the HIRAX roadmap through participation in the interest group that's advising the HIRAX roadmap. And we will, Avalon as a solution bundle, will have representation, as you saw, on the roadmap council when it begins. So where are we with development? In sum, we expect to have a fully featured solution bundle done by early 2020. I'm putting it out there. We have an MVP right now that's in the Avalon bundle repository. It's comprised of gems that allow one to ingest, describe, and stream AV materials. And those of you who were at Chris Colvard and Brian Keese's workshop yesterday learned how to use those components in a custom HIRAX build. Okay, so on to the details of where we are in development for 7. We've completed 3 cycles so far. We defined our media content type, so we had our metadata specialists consult the community to formulate what should be in a custom work type and what should be in the generic one. We developed a IIIF player, which followed the IIIF 3.0 spec that John talked about earlier. We ensured that that player could consume a manifest and show media within HIRAX. We built out the transcoding pipeline by extending active encode to work with hydroderivatives for use in a HIRAX context. And of course, no work is ever complete without the pretty pictures, so we already began some UI mockups for the solution bundle. Okay, so we're currently in 4, and you can see all the sprint cycles listed here, getting us to the release candidate in the fall, and we expect a couple months of work to actually be done with this, or release Avalon 7 fully. So the future cycles are, I'll go over, I'm not going to go over every one. Currently, we're filling out the bones, so that's the batch and ingestion pipeline. Next, we're going to work on security and the metadata along with UI work, and then we'll finish it off with all of Avalon's rich user features like playlists. Additionally, I do want to mention this, as part of our current IMLS grant, we worked with a vendor, Lyricist, to pilot a hosted solution of Avalon 6, and we do feel confident that Avalon 7's future includes a hosted product. Lastly, we are working with Archivematica as well to integrate Avalon into a preservation workflow. Okay, so now that we covered the what in terms of Avalon 7, I'll move on to the how the team has been focusing on sustaining and integrating Avalon into the community. Here you go. So basically, the Avalon team splits their time between Avalon core work and assisting with the Samvera community work. In addition to participation in the special interest group advising the HIRAX roadmap, we've set up a HIRAX Avalon PALS call. So those are the project leads. They get together, I think, every week or every 2 weeks to discuss development. And then we also, both Northwestern and IU, have been participating in the HIRAX working group. We also, as you can see here, have a lot of team members involved in at least 6 or 7 working in interest groups right now. And I would be remiss not to acknowledge the hard work of our community manager. So 40% of his time, this is Ryan, our community manager, 40% of his time is to the general community. And he's been working on like the governance working group, marketing working group, contributions working group, the DSpace working group. So he's been doing a ton. John Dunn is on steering, and both IU and Northwestern are very active partners in the community. I would be remiss not to put everyone's names up on the board here. And John tells me we always forget someone. So I'm hoping we didn't forget anyone. This is the current Avalon team. So join us. By having our team dedicate a fair bit of time and effort and engaging members of the Samvera community beyond Northwestern and IU, we have seen a very big return on our investment. And we believe Avalon, and by proxy Samvera, will be sustainable in the long term. I'm now going to hand this off to Ryan, who's going to talk about developing the Avalon community specifically.
Hi, everybody. We're currently working through an IMLS grant. I'm actually on that grant, and it's all about sustainability. And really what we're looking to do is figure out how we can sustain ourselves, as Carolyn described, by really embedding ourselves into the community and working with more folks. So we're not kind of a standalone solution bundle that's kind of out there on its own. That's one avenue that we're going through. We're definitely looking for partnerships. We're looking for ways that we can work with all of you out there. If you're working on something that's AV related, IIIF, anything like that, we want to be talking to you guys. Even if it doesn't mean that we're all going to pile or pack everything into one Ruby gem or whatever, a component, we definitely want to at least know what everybody's doing and find those opportunities. And we want to hear what you need if you are thinking about AV, if it's not part of what's currently going on in your infrastructure. And we also want to know, like, if with smaller institutions, one of the things that we hear a lot from are institutions who are not part of the Samvera community. We want to hear from folks who are outside of it, who are looking for an AV solution for their library or other memory institution. So we do definitely want to try and stop reinventing wheels. If there's folks who think that you want to get into AV, it's something you want to do, and you're thinking about local development, at least do come talk to us. As we do get that better adoption, it definitely does create a better Avalon. It gets a chance for us to get more contributors in, and of course then we're saying in all of our grants that we're going to help the entire library community, right? So that's what we want to do. We want to extend the reach. And to that end, we're not a vendor at all. I think I've had to actually say that here. I've been here this week. But I do want to connect like one. I want us to be out there talking to people and seeing what we can do. So one of the things that was in place before I showed up is Avalon already does demos that they record and put up in Avalon, funnily enough. And so at the end of each cycle, you'll see them go through that, and we will post it up to the demo Avalon installation. Further, when we have releases, you're going to see a big social media blitz from us, and you're going to see a list of everything that's going on, and hopefully we'll create a demo that'll also go up in that demo Avalon. And you're probably sick of getting emails from me on Google Groups. If you see the name Ryan Steens go by about twice a week, sorry. But we do try and keep active and let people know, can keep abreast of what's up. Mike mentioned that we'd started with the Avalon, or sorry, you did mention the forum as well as office hours. We are doing it monthly. It's about 30 minutes. You'll hear kind of where we're going to be for conferences, kind of what's going on with us. But we also want to make sure if folks are using Avalon, we give them an opportunity to showcase so we can spotlight what's going on and give you maybe ideas if you're thinking about Avalon, just to show up and see kind of, okay, what are other folks doing? And you can also hear about some external development, like Lyrasis is going to be presenting in November about what they did with us. And you'll also, of course, get a section of Avalon development updates. And we want to use that as an opportunity for the community to all talk to each other and kind of get to know each other. As was mentioned, Mike and Hannah set up their office hours with the Hydra in a Box project. Thought it was a great idea. And so once a week right now, we're doing a 1-hour time block. Anybody can come in with any question. You don't need to be an Avalon user. You don't need to know anything about it. It is literally there for you to come in and ask any question. Chris is usually there, and he's great about answering technical questions. I may tune out while he's going through something with people. But if you're coming in and kind of just trying to learn about what's going on with the system, how can it fit in with your infrastructure, that's part of what it's there for too. We've also used it to kind of highlight what's going on with the roadmap if people want to drop in there, and used it for some other things like that. We're also working on some training things. If you were here yesterday, you know that Chris and Brian had an excellent workshop. We're hoping to take that and turn that into some online modules. Further, I'm going to be working with Jen and Julie to get some information up about metadata in Avalon and AV in general. So things like that will be coming out, and we'll be letting you guys know, and of course be putting those up in our demo Avalon. So there's no right or wrong way to let us know that you want to talk to us. So I'm not going to put up a list of here's the right email address. It doesn't matter. However you want to find us is fine with us. Just come find us. Of course, there's avalonmediasystem.org, and from there you should be able to find any of us. But we want to know what's going to make Avalon a better fit for you. As we're going to this restructuring and we're thinking about it as a series of components, what does that look like in your infrastructure? How can we help you guys bring your AV out to the world? So kind of in conclusion, these were the big things that we hit. We're definitely going to want to continue to support that foundation of Samvera and the core components. We're going to want to continue to support HIRAX. We definitely want to make Avalon easier to adopt, which hopefully we'll be doing by not making it a separate solution bundle, and it looks a lot more like HIRAX as we go forward. And we're going to be improving our features and functionality. So hopefully with that, as we grow the Avalon community, hopefully through that, we'll also be growing the HIRAX and Samvera community. Questions?
The audio annotation tool that you're working on with Digerati that John mentioned, is that going to be easily adoptable for HIRAX applications or easily adaptable for AAAF compliant systems, regardless of whether they're HIRAX or Samvera?
Yeah, good question. Nothing in it is specific to Avalon or HIRAX or Samvera, so it can essentially bring in an audio. Right now it's audio only. It can bring in an audio file either directly as a file and create a skeleton AAAF presentation 3.0 manifest for it, or it can import an existing manifest, and then the annotations it creates then get saved as data within the manifest, so it can be saved back out or exported back out as a AAAF manifest, and then re-imported for further work or potentially used in other tools. So yeah, not Samvera specific at all. The goal is kind of the real goal is one tool for the teacher, student, scholar that can work with content from whatever system, and that's kind of one of the goals of AAAF as a whole. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
additionally, creating those benchmarks will help us to make sure we don't make them less performant as we add things into the future. And so, so you can tell Trey made a change to this between when I saw it last.
This is a real photo captured recently.
It was up in the hills when I was hiking. The Hyrax Valkyrax came out of the woods, and I took this photo while I was hiking. So we wanted to put, and this has been mentioned a couple times before, but there's a lot of great work that's already gone into moving Hyrax onto Valkyrie so that people can choose their backends when they're using Hyrax. And there's a meeting today at lunch at 12:30. And I really can't tell you how to say the room number. I think it's floor 130, because 11,030 or 1,130 doesn't make much sense either. So I think it's floor 130, which is down here. And then we just wanted to say thanks. I mean, so this code would not exist without the community. And so this is an alphabetical list of all the people who have contributed to the code. And, you know, this community has allowed for this code to exist and come about. So thank you very much. And then, do you have any questions? And we also have, if you don't have questions now and you think of questions later, we have a frequently asked questions.
And you better have questions because we have a long time.
Did we talk too quickly?
I think so.
Uh-oh. We started early too, it's not our fault. No.
This is a bit of a technical question, but so you mentioned we're updating dry struct. Does that mean that we can't do those active record style validations that are currently a part of reform? Right, post dry struct update?
No, nothing changes about that. The changes in dry struct are they changed sort of how they store the hash that powers a Valkyrie resource, as well as it turns out there were some missing APIs in Valkyrie for things like arbitrarily setting setting a property. And there were some assumptions about how Valkyrie resources worked if you set an instance variable that was equal to a property that have now changed, which means we need a major version. But all of the reform stuff works the same.
I didn't see it on this slide earlier, but do you know, is anyone working on an S3 storage adapter?
There's a ticket that's existed in Valkyrie for a long time. I've heard interest. I mean, really what it is that we just don't have anybody who's actively working on Valkyrie that stores an S3. So the testing, the testing infrastructure for how to make sure that works. We just don't have the expertise in it right now. I've heard some interest in implementing it via a more generic active storage adapter, as well as a shrine-based adapter, which would also allow you to store to S3.
Since you said it, since you said active storage, this is a way out there question, but what about using Valkyrie as a replacement for active storage?
It's up to you. I think storage adapters and files, if you look at it in the generic sense, looks a lot like active storage. So I'm not sure what you would get out of it, really. It's really, the benefit of active storage is that it has tie-ins to the framework that are nice, right? It'll bind to your active record objects in a way that you might want, and things like that. I think the nice part about Valkyrie's storage stuff is it doesn't assume that you've got a relational database storing like storing metadata about that file, where active storage does.
Two microphones. You sound very confident, which is great news for us, about the 1.0 release and its stability. That's fantastic. What optimizations in the future, however, do you envisage, if any? Do you have any in mind, or?
I do performance optimizations on the Valkyrie adapters that we use at Princeton fairly often. And I think that's sort of how it's going to go forward. The people, like, you need to use these adapters in production to know where the slow parts are. Like, and I think that's just the fact of the matter. So those will continue to improve. So far, every performance improvement we've done is we've been able to do as patch releases. We've never needed to change the API. So hopefully going forward, if you're involved, you should just be able to either implement the fixes that you see, or we can help, and it'll get added to a release. The only other piece of performance is, it changes depending on what the case is, but roughly 20% of the time is like dry struct changing your properties over to a Valkyrie resource, and those just get better as the library gets better.
Thank you.
Does everyone just want lunch? I totally get it.
So I know you said that you don't know when Valkyrie 2.0 is coming out. So I was wondering if you could comment on when you think Valkyrie 2.0 is coming out.
Okay.
In the next year, Valkyrie 2.0 will come out. How about that?
Yeah, so we have a branch that updates dry struct. The things stopping Valkyrie 2.0 coming out right now are our responsibility to our current implementers. So there are a couple of things that change that we would need deprecation notices about, or at least some sort of informational thing so that you could upgrade version 1 and fix whatever notifications you get, and then go to 2 and it'll just work. Because we feel like it's important to be nice in that way. And the other things are, I don't know, we just don't do major releases very often, so it's like a chance to think about what other breaking changes we might want to implement. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
Oh yeah, go back to that.
Come to that one.
So I was also asked to talk about the other working groups that are coming. There is the Samvera steering in here in gold. And then there's also metadata interest group, which is in floor 150 is how I'm gonna say it. So what they're hoping you do is go up, get your lunch, and then come back down. So that's
All right. Lunch is up there.